Solidarity Center. Those are, I mean, we have a lot of funders in Europe and as well as branching out to Australia. So who are you? No, that's really nice. Yeah, hopefully. Oh, you did it. Oh my God.
Chinese with a Yale PhD student who is just doing work and stuff like that. So this is his advisor.
I just left out. Where are you? See? It's a bit like too. It's a bit too. Amazing. It's a big issue. I always have to change my name.
Hello everybody, could I have your attention please? Please would you gather around the front area here, because we're going to go on now to the more formal part of the evening, which is the presentation of the International Activist Award. Thanks very much. So if you could please move over to this area. Thank you. Yeah, just sit here. This is fine. Yeah. I'm Robin Munro. I'm the research director at China Labour Bulletin, and I'd like to welcome you all very warmly to the International Activist Award presentation, and to say how pleased we are on behalf of all the China Labour Bulletin staff who are here today, and on behalf of the co-hosts of this event, Alan Gleitsman and Sherry Roche, who are both board members of the Gleitsman Foundation, and Han Dongfang, who's this year's one of this year's honorees for the International Activist Award. It's a great pleasure to have you all here. Sherry Rocher told us before this event that it was our party. So we're here to celebrate this award. And we've invited a lot of our old friends, going back 15 years and more, in the Hong Kong NGO labor rights movement, the Hong Kong human rights movement. We have here tonight many members of the local and international news media, and we have leading lawyers and barristers who are active in the defense of rule of law in Hong Kong, and also several, very honored by several pro-democracy elected LegCo members who are here tonight. And also representatives of various governments, consulates general here in Hong Kong from around the world. And last but not least, leaders of the Hong Kong Confederation of Trade Unions, who have always been the strongest and most stalwart supporters of Han Dongfang and China Labour Bulletin. And we're delighted to welcome you all here tonight. Well, I'll just say a few words before we move into the introducing our other guest tonight. Han Dongfang is someone I've known since June 1989 in Tiananmen Square. And if I may say so, Dongfang, you've come a long way since then. When I met Dongfang, he was the spokesperson for the recently formed Beijing Workers' Autonomous Federation in Tiananmen Square, which was the first independent labor rights group in China since 1949. And at that time, Dongfang was a maintenance technician on the long-distance railways in China, the cargo haulage system. And but he always had a very clear vision of where he wanted to go, even then. And I can't resist adding at this point that as well as the International Activist Award, this has been a great year for Dongfang and for China Labour Bulletin, because Dongfang was also awarded or appointed as a Regents Lecturer at the University of California, Los Angeles, which he'll be taking up for a 2-week stint in June this year. And for someone who never had the opportunity to go to university as a student, I think we can say that's pretty good going. So Dongfang has always, as I say, had a clear vision of what's needed in China to address the lack of workers' rights. And essentially, I think, if I can sum it up briefly, it's that Chinese workers need their own independent voice in society. They need an organized representation to fight for their interests peacefully, lawfully, and responsibly. Right now, forming independent unions in China is still strictly illegal. So in that sense, we can say that the workers' rights movement in China is fundamentally one of human rights, because Chinese workers still don't have that fundamental right to freedom of association. But over the last 15 years, Dongfang has explored and tried out many different approaches to tackling this Gordian knot of how you begin to bring about workers' rights in China. And through his work at Radio Free Asia and our work here, which we do with Dongfang at China Labour Bulletin, we're trying to create viable, successful models for doing this within the narrow constraints of the current Chinese legal system. Dongfang will talk more about that in a moment. I'd like now to go straight on to introduce our first speaker, who we're very honored tonight to have Elizabeth Tang, who is the Executive Director of the Hong Kong Confederation of Trade Unions, which has been keeping the flag of free trade unionism flying right here in Hong Kong since the handover in 1997. And I should add that the CTU is the only trade union on PRC territory which is recognized and supported by the international labor movement through the International Confederation of Free Trade Unions based in Brussels, of which the CTU is an affiliate. So I'd like to ask Elizabeth now to come up and say a few words. Thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I think for people like me who have spent their last 20 years working with workers and trade unions, will feel very glad and excited this moment, because I think Han Dongfang is the first activist who have done specifically labor rights work, trade union rights work, to get an international award like this. So this is really a great encouragement to people like me. And as a member of the Hong Kong CTU, I've been able to attend many international conferences, and recently I noticed that there have been many talks about China has taken away jobs from workers in the United States, and now also recently even EU trade unionists and politicians and governments are complaining. But who knows that the problems at the other end, that is for workers inside China, the more jobs opportunities given to them have not really helped them very much to remedy their situation. They continue to face problems like not being able to get their wages, low wages, long working hours, high rate of occupational hazards and injuries, just to name some of them. And the main problem is, until today, they still lack the weapon and even the voice to defend themselves. And freedom of association, the right to organize freely, the organization of their own choice, is still being denied. And just as Robin has mentioned, for workers, even though they want to organize themselves for the short-term goal, that is just to get their wages back, will get imprisoned. And for this, Han Dongfang has worked very hard to campaign for their release in different ways. And this is very important for us. So that's why, for us, we have been very happy and encouraged by the fact that Han Dongfang has been given this International Activist Award. And I'm sure for workers inside China, they will feel very happy and encouraged to hear about this news, because they know that the world has not forgotten them. The world is not only talking about economic successes inside China, but they also remember that workers, their problems, and they need their rights to be upheld. And I am sure this award will have a lot of meaning for them also. And for us, we know then what the standard is for people who are trying to improve the human rights situation, workers' rights situation, trade union rights situation in China. By looking what Han has done in the past, that is, first, we have to talk to the workers. We have to communicate directly with the workers, which Han is doing every day. And secondly, we have to campaign and agitate for the right of freedom of association. And Han did that as far back as in 1989, when he dared to set up the Autonomous Workers' Federation. And third, we have to try every means to campaign for the release of the jailed workers' activists, and this through CLB. And together with the Hong Kong CTU, we have been constantly doing that. And lastly, we have to make sure that workers get education, training, and we help them to organize. Because at the end of the day, it is only workers inside China who get organized and can change the situation. and we can only do all we can to help them. And I mentioned these 4 points as standards for us who wants to help workers inside China to improve their right situations. And I'm very certain that Han Dongfang has been acting like a needle, which always pierces onto the skin of people who want to take the shortcut, who want to do the easy way. But then today, by the fact that he is able to get his award, we know what the standard is. Thank you. Congratulations.
Thanks so much, Elizabeth. I'd like now to introduce Alan Gleitsman, the founder of the Gleitsman Foundation. Alan had a career in the entertainment industry in America and was director of a film distribution company. And when he retired, he founded the Gleitsman Foundation, whose purpose is to recognize and encourage leadership in social activism worldwide. And since the foundation was set up in 1989, there are several categories of awards that it gives. One is the Citizen Activist Award, which is for US citizens fighting for social justice issues in the US, including campaigns for homeless people, finding ways to reduce the murder rate, all kinds of valuable issues that are so much overlooked by other organizations. And then the International Activist Award, which since 1989 has included among its the recipients Nelson Mandela in '93, in '95 Jose Ramos Horta, who's now the foreign minister of the independent East Timor, the founder of in Argentina, the Mothers Campaign, who used to gather every week in the main square to demand information about their disappeared relatives under the Argentinian junta. 99 was the Advocates for Reconciliation in the Middle East, including Mahmoud Abbas and Yossi Beilin. And then 2001, the award went to creators of schools in Cambodia and to advocates for the rights of the Dalits, or untouchable caste, in India. And so this year, the award has gone to Han Dongfang and to the London-based Global Witness, which campaigns for an end to things like the conflict diamonds trade in Africa, where diamonds are illegally trafficked to purchase weapons for insurgencies and civil conflicts. So it's an illustrious roster of honorees, and we're delighted that Dongfang has this year been one of the recipients. So without further ado, I'd like to hand over to Alan Gleitsman, who will then introduce Han and present the award. Thank you, Alan.
Thank you, Robin, and thank you all for coming. I'd like to make a particularly warm welcome to two good friends of Sherry's and mine, two people that have fought for the people of Hong Kong for many, many years now, Martin Lee and Emily Lau. It really is wonderful to be here tonight as we celebrate the vision and applaud the courage and the commitment of Han Dongfang. And I'd also like to salute the people that we met today that work with Han Dongfang, because together you have made huge strides toward workers' rights and eventually independent trade unions in China. When we began soliciting nominations for this year's award, Robin mentioned to me that he would like to nominate Han Dongfang. I thought that was a great idea because Sherry and I have known Dongfang for perhaps 10 years now, And each time that we come to Hong Kong, we look forward to meeting with him, learning more about his work and what he's doing differently now than he did the year before. And to tell you the truth, in recent years, we've been amazed at the progress that he's made. As you know, through China Labor Bulletin and his Radio Free Asia broadcasts and their call-in programs, Han Dongfang has become the unrivaled chief spokesman for the workers' movement in China. We salute him for his creativeness, his leadership, and his perseverance in the past decade, and really feel that only he and those of you that are working very closely with him have any idea where his work will take him in the years ahead. The Gleitsman Foundation was created in the belief that when we are confronted by social injustice, each of us must personally join in the struggle if we are to achieve the world to which we all aspire. We seek to recognize activist achievement and to motivate others to become activists. Through our awards programs in the last 16 years, we've saluted more than 250 men and women whose efforts to bring about social change are truly inspirational, and none more so than Han Dongfang. We hope that by recognizing the achievements of people like Han Dongfang and the qualities of intelligence and tenacity that enable him to succeed, others will realize that they too can make a difference. I was personally inspired by a speech by Robert Kennedy in South Africa almost 40 years ago. And I'd like to share a few of his words with you, as they are the very essence of our philosophy. Robert Kennedy said, "Few will have the greatness to bend history itself, but each of us can work to change a small portion of events, and in the total of all those acts will be written the history of this generation." We believe that Han Dongfang is writing the history of this generation, and we are very proud to present the 2005 Gleitsman Foundation International Activist Award to Han Dongfang. Please. Okay, wherever you like. Oh, I should say something about this sculpture. This sculpture was made for us by Maya Lin, who made the Vietnam War Memorial in Washington. And when I approached her to ask her to make the sculpture, she of course asked what the purpose that it would be used for. And when I told her that, she said, "Well, let me think about that." And a few days later, she called back and she said that she thought some people saw things more clearly. And she created this sculpture trying to embody this quality with the magnifying glass that enabled them to see and succeed. So it fits what Han Dongfang has been doing.
I usually don't prepare a speech, but today I prepared it in case I speak too long and make everybody tired. And thank you, Sherry, and thank you, Alan, and the foundation gave me the opportunity. I mean, thank you, everybody, guests here, and coming to share this feeling really glory feeling with me. And also, I saw Marianne, she used to be my English teacher, so without her, I cannot really talk here. And yeah, actually from 1980s, we know that, China really switched itself from the planned economy into sort of a market economy, and that's what they said. And but the workers' rights is not really following the step of a market economy, and there's no much chance for the workers to, for example, to get organized as the same as those real market economy states and countries. And that's what we believe the main reason that the Chinese workers' rights is being, driven down and down and down, and there's no chance at all for the Chinese workers to really make them their own situation better. So we all know that 1989, the movement starting from Tiananmen Square, including the workers, began to struggle. Really, that was the starting moment that workers in China began to think, wait a minute, what's going on there? And the achievement of economic reform, and are we sharing any, or we're losing something? Or, I mean, at that time, the workers in China was not really as bad as today, the situation. But people can feel it, and people can feel what will happen to them. And that's why when the movement began, led by the students immediately, and the workers began to join the movement and becoming the part of the main part of the movement, and which we deeply believe the workers, since the workers joined the movement, that alarmed the government that this is not good. And so I'm not saying the workers' movement joined this, make the government decided to, use violence, but it's definitely scared the government. And that's a part of the 1989. And since then, the workers in China has never really stopped struggling, but most of them, those people who were calling for independent trade union movement in general, or even in their factory level, trying to organize the workers to get their basic rights back, many of them being jailed. For example, we have in Hunan a retired teacher, Zhang Shanguang, who just released a open letter to the public calling for workers' rights to organize independent trade union, and he was sentenced 12 years. Still, now he's in prison. And you have in Gansu province the bus driver Yue Tianxiang. He was sentenced 10 years just because he released a public letter to President Jiang Zemin at that time, calling that government should allow the workers to organize independent trade union. So he got 10 years in sentence. And you have recently, in year 2001, in Liaoning province, after the state enterprises reform, that factory, the state-owned enterprise, you have two workers who led these thousands of workers, into street protest against this illegal kind of state enterprises reform. And these two workers, Xiao Yunliang and Yao Fuxin, they are now serving their jail term, and they're in very bad health condition. And this is the result we can see as worker in China. You have two choices. One is when you face the exploitation, you keep quiet and say nothing. And two, if you cannot keep quiet anymore and you begin to talk, to struggle, and you face to prison. We have been thinking about this. Is that the only two terms for Chinese workers to go to prison or stay quiet? Is there a third way of achieve something? And we do believe from the last 11 years, we began this China Labor Bulletin. We do find a way. And first, we found the reason why the workers in China, are able to be put into the quiet position. One is there's no rule of law. The lawmakers are the worst part, really violating the laws. They are the worst part, ignore the laws, and the government department affair. And they, for example, the labor bureaus from every local, every provincial, city, county, and they know there are mass labor rights violation out there, labor law violation there, and they just ignore this. They're not doing their job. And also the state enterprises reform and the government department who in charge of this reform process, they illegally fire the workers without legal proper compensation. And when the workers try to approach the court to make a lawsuit, and the court refused to take the case. So these people, they are violating the law. They ignore the law. They make the law as just like words in the paper. And because of this kind of government officials' behavior, and that makes the workers don't have faith in law, and they don't trust the law. And that caused the result today. The workers in China, usually they go demonstrate. They go block the railway. They go block the whole city's traffic, and instead of go to the court to make a lawsuit, because it doesn't make sense for them to spend time, spend money, energy, and taking risks, and to approach nothing. And that's why the demonstrations are often happen, and it's not helping anybody. It doesn't help the workers, doesn't help the government, doesn't help the business and economy. It just make the result becoming mass, and we call it time bomb. And the Chinese government call it it's a social and political unrest. So we call it a time bomb. Actually, it's caused by partly, really, the main part is the government itself. So just to put everything together, the China's labor bulletins, the last 5 years' work, we have several main approach in the next, let's say, 5 years, from now to year 2009 or 2010. We will pick more and more these very typical cases, like now we're having lawyers from Beijing representing the coal miners. So, after the coal mine disaster, these victim families, the local government gave them pressure, and even the local trade unions tried to give them pressure, tried to, tell them, don't make trouble, just take whatever the money the government gave it to you, and otherwise, if you make trouble, and you even don't get this money. And we are telling the workers by our lawyers that no, it's not the case. The occupational compensation has to be there. I don't have to worry about this. But in addition, you have the right to claim civil compensation. So we represent you to claim civil compensation. It's not only 80,000. It's not only 200,000 as currently the central government gave the order to different local government to raise the rate to up to 200,000 per life. And we are saying 1 million, 2 million, and we try to use this law, civil law, to make a recalculation of life. Life lost from this family is not only lost a bank card, taking money from a money machine, and the life lost as a father, as a husband, as son, as a life in a family, and that lost forever. That effort to the children's growth, and effort to the parents, to the whole family, how to calculate this as a whole person, but not only as a figure of machine, money. And also, through this process, we don't only play the role that taking care of these families, taking care of these workers, and by someone else. So we're trying to use these cases to encourage the workers, encourage the families to take part of it, and they are going to be the key people to play the role. Without them, there will be no case. And we encourage them to be active in the case and to show other workers that you can play a very important key role to protect yourself. And we are on the side only provide some little help. And eventually, we really hope through this legal assistance to these workers' family and also some other, not only coal mine cases, and we have the foreign factory like this jewelry factory cases, workers get silicosis, and we also help them. And we're making these showcases to other workers, to other families, that the workers, if you are taking action, if you stand up with some little push, some little help on the side, you can make it by yourself. Not, you're not as useless as you thought. So that's finally we want to put the workers themselves, give them more self-confidence. They will eventually have the idea of solidarity, have the idea of organizing. And finally, we approach the point that freedom association by the workers themselves. And yes, we do have this more than 2,000 years revolutionary history in China. Every time the violent revolution changed the regime, but the workers and the farmers, the ordinary people, always became the two of these strong character people, and make them, they sacrifice their blood, their life, their family, only make another new dictator. And every time after another, we repeat this. And I think this is, this century is the time to stop this circle. And how to stop this circle? And we're not only every day talking about the terrible workers, terrible farmers, they're making trouble, they're time bombs, they're creating social instability and political social instability and political instability. And we want to find out a path to involve them, and they will have peaceful way to explain themselves, to protect themselves, instead of keep quiet until the last minute. They cannot keep quiet anymore, and everybody explode. And that's the moment we don't want to see, but that's very sadly to say that. That's the current system is pushing the whole situation, approaching that point. So we're now struggling here, and the labor movement and the current system, see who will be stronger. And we really believe that the labor movement can contribute a lot. And again, I want to thank the Gleitsman Foundation, and also very important to thank my colleagues here from China Labour Bulletin, and also those colleagues who from the last 11 years used to work in China Labour Bulletin. Really, we are together making this organization really worked until today. And through our struggle and our work in the future, and we do believe the Chinese labor movement is going to be shortly in making. And that's what I said year 2009, half year or 1 year after the Olympic game succeeded or not succeeded, we don't know, but I will be physically returned to where I came from, to my country. And just like Robin mentioned, I should especially thank Robin. Why? Because he's the one really took me my name from prison, and he was the last person I saw in Tiananmen Square. And without this guy, and I probably will be a dead person somewhere buried in the earth. And I want to special thank my brother, Robin, to all the work he helped me and to achieve today. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Well, thanks so much, Dongfang. You're far too generous in your praise as always, but appreciate it. And so that's, we've heard the future strategy, and we're determined to go that direction. even if it takes a long time. So thank you, Alan, thank you, Sherry, and Dongfang, and Elizabeth. And now I'd like to open up to questions and discussion. If you'd like to... Oh, yes, yes. And also very important, I want to just mention that Han Dongfang is going to be donating his entire share of the International Activist Award prize money to China Labour Bulletin, to our Legal Defence Fund, which is the fund that we have to pay for all these lawsuits that we're helping to wage in China on behalf of Chinese workers and their families. And what Dongfang didn't mention is that the legal action that we're engaged in China has recently, over the last year and a half, also included taking on criminal defense work for Chinese worker activists who get detained in the line of trade union or trade union-like activities in China. And we've so far carried out 2 major cases involving a total of about 20 detained workers who were wrongfully criminally charged with all sorts of alleged offences like disturbing social order, being a pain in the neck to the government. And we successfully fought these cases. In the case of the Stella workers, the Stella shoe factory in Dongguan, in April last year, 10 workers were arrested after, just as Dongfang was saying, the tensions built to boiling point and explosion point. The workers were working such long hours, such lousy pay, the food was appalling, their dormitory facilities were wretched. They just lost it one night, and they staged a rowdy rampage through the factory. And 10 workers were arrested. Actually, I think it's fair to say no other group was prepared to take this case on because there were allegations of violence. It wasn't a clean-cut freedom of association case, but we looked at it. Dongfang and I were in Geneva at the ILO annual conference at that point. I remember sitting over coffee with Dongfang, saying, what are we going to do? Dongfang immediately said, we're going to take on this case. Why? Because it's completely typical of what happens in China all over the country when workers are not given a structured channel for presenting grievances. They have no trade union there to fight their corner against the employers, and tensions build to the point where they have no recourse but just to vent it, and it comes out spontaneously. Our view was it's the Stella management that should be in the dock in court that day, not the defendants. They created the problem through their violation of China's own domestic labor laws. That should be the issue. We managed to get lawyers, a top law firm in Beijing, to take this case on. They fought it brilliantly. The defense lawyer, I've never read such a good defense speech. The outcome was, at the first trial, they went down for up to 3.5 years. But our lawyers appealed it. And you know what? All 10 of those workers walked free on December 31st last year. So just an example of the, something can be done. So thanks again, everybody. And sorry, I've been talking again. Please, I'd like to hear your comments, questions, and open it up for discussion.
Yeah, how good are your sources on the labour movement in China?
Okay, the question is how good are our sources on the labour movement in China? Perhaps address that question to Dongfang. Do we have solid information?
Yeah, as Robin mentioned, I have this radio program running 3 times a week, and we have, you never know the concrete figure how many tens of thousands people are listening. When I was in China, I was every night at midnight, tuning this radio zzz, with this kind of jamming things, but I was listening it every day. So that's, with Radio Free Asia, this is one of the channel we get information, get the workers calling us. And the other channel is the internet. The internet is a very, very important development. And you have, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of websites and bulletin boards inside China. You just choose 10 or 20 of them. You go every day, and you just go. Each of them, they spend 5 minutes. You will find something there within this 20. So you find demonstrations. You have these farmers' cases, like the land being taken away by the local authority to develop the industrial park or something, and without proper compensation. So these cases, we just evaluate it first, and then if we see that as a potential collective lawsuit case, and that also will give the future opportunity as a showcase to other villagers, other factory workers, and we'll pick it up. And we don't really, we wish we can win these cases. Of course, we evaluate it and see whether we can win, but we don't only make the decision based on whether we can win these cases. Some of the cases we know that we'll never win this case. But that case in the courtroom, from lawyers, defense statements, from the lawsuit, from the media, you can really put the issue there, like the occupational health and safety, the insurance bureau. In every city, after we involve these coal mine cases and jewelry cases, we just realized this. These local insurance bureau, health and safety insurance bureau, they are the bureau that only taking money. That's it. They're not issuing money when there is an injury. And they're not checking the factories. Supposedly, these insurance people, you have like medical insurance. You go try to provide some services to let people know how to take care of themselves, and that your company can spend less. But these people, they don't check these factory, whether they properly providing these health and safety facilities, and they just take money there and do nothing. So from these cases, we just uncover all these things and try to make the government and also the official trade union to do their duty. So that's a.
How about our sources? We get call-ins, telephone call-ins.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, we have these radio listeners calling us. And that's the two different sources. One is the radio listeners, and the other one is we're not only waiting here for somebody calling us, we also go out, like the internet. That's our sources.
Yeah.
So I'm going to stand here.
Yeah, just stay there, yeah. Any other questions or comments? Nicola Becklam from Human Rights in China.
It's not a question, actually. It's just a comment. I want to say that Dongfang has not only done a lot on the labor rights movement, but for everyone who is striving for better recognition of basic rights in China. We are all looking up to him. Organization that work, international organization or Chinese organization, he is an inspiration and really a model for the concrete work and the innovative approaches that he has taken over the years. And China Labor Bulletin really sets the benchmarks for the work that you can do in China.
Thanks, Nicholas. Yeah. Any other? Yes, this gentleman.
I really would like
James
to
Tang.
join others to congratulate Dongfang. This is, I think, wonderful. I do have a question. It seems that the current leadership has been sort of tougher against a lot of political dissidents. Yet, at the same time, there seems to be more activities on the ground and more some degree of tolerance of certain types of civil resistance. And you make some references to a time bomb. Dongfang, how do you see the things developing? Where are we heading now? I know it's difficult, but I just really like to hear your assessment of what's happening now. Thank you. And all these anti-Japanese demonstrations, certain degree of letting off the steam and certain degree of attempts to restrict room for that kind of expressions. And that seems to be a lot of contradictions now. Thank you.
Yeah, it is difficult. as different people have different opinion about the current leadership, and some people said they're much more open-minded, they're much nicer than before, whatever. But when I see this, I will see this as a what I say, different style, and I don't judge them by saying they're better than before or they're worse than before. So it's just a different style. And yes, as you said, there are still dissidents being detained, and just recently there are another group of people being detained. And in the same time, there are more demonstrations are happening. In the same time, those demonstrations, those leaders of demonstrations are also being detained or on trial, sentenced. That's, you know, when we see this, when we talk about Chinese government today, we have to make it clear, we're not talking about one thing. Chinese government is not the whole thing today. And we have to really remember this, otherwise it will misguide us to somewhere, nowhere. And we have to think, you have central government, you have provincial, you have city, you have county, you have town, and you have in different level. For example, city, you have a labor bureau, you have the business registration bureau, you have a government office, the mayor, and they are now busy in their own area, which means mostly being corrupted and making themselves rich. So this is not a whole government. Sometimes we have to realize this. The central government's interests is completely different than the local government. And quite often they are fighting against each other. And the central government don't like the local government behavior at all. Although the central government is not a democratic structure, we have to realize that too. So what we should do is to figure out what's going on in China. We find the easiest part to get in. And that's how we found our idea, which is called case intervention. And we have cases. We have these terrible cases. Nobody helped these workers. And we have life lost there underground, hundreds of them. Even we have 166 life lost last year. And this year we have another coal mine disaster, 214 people lost life. And these terrible cases, and we pick them, and we use the law, the Chinese current law, to defend them. And that makes nobody can say we have hidden agenda. Well, you have people say we have hidden agenda. Han Dongfang is a labeled hostile element or whatever it says. But we just go as concrete as possible. And we don't care the leadership. New leadership is better than before or different than before. We don't care the next one will be worse than the current one. Because if we pay attention on that area too much, that we are misleading ourselves and misleading other people too, that makes, again, the leadership is the most important thing. So we want to highlight the point, the leadership, although they are important, but in the same time, what China really needs, study from our history, we need civil society. And where we can develop the civil society is from the workers, the Freedom Association, practice their rights to have a collective bargaining with their boss. So these are the key area. If we find out there's a political structure and there's a weaker point and we can get in and nobody can make argument, actually we are making more friends. We get these local governments from different departments. They're complaining to us even. They're complaining about another department. So that's, you can see if even the leadership is not changing, but under there, within the structure, if you don't see the government, China, as a whole thing, and you do it in a practical way, there will be always solution to get these things changed.
Okay. Any other questions or comments or issues that you'd like to raise? Am I missing anyone now? Is there somebody over here? Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone. And please, let's resume the party, have some more drinks, and once again, thanks so much for coming and celebrating this great event with us today. And finally, one more big thank you to Alan Gleitsman and Cherie Rocher for being with us here tonight. It's a great pleasure.
Thank you.
Asia Pacific 嘅，我哋喺新加坡、香港又有上海、北京好多，所以我哋都做好大嘅。香港我哋都做得好好㗎啦。係啊，因為其實咧，你知道佢哋話可能要即係上學咧，叫所有佢哋自己去學啊，同埋而家好多機構都會搞嗰啲普通話班嘅。
And so, yeah. And so this guy who's still at Disney wrote to like all of us and said, you know, we've got to start sharing information. And when somebody
oh yeah. Okay. So since they're doing that, well, you're telling me this private thing.
yesterday, the other day,
she will run if there's no chance. If there's a chance, of course she will run. The trouble is, those people would only run in Beijing saying, yes, you can win. I mean, it's not a real election. He will not get the government. So it will just be shut down. Then there will be no conflict. Whereas in Macau, the election laws that even if they don't want there is still a deal with so they don't want to risk. They don't want to risk it. I don't think Donald wants to risk either. Unless we lost the next one. So you have to tell the president.
And I said, now, and then we got the board here and mounted it, and one thing led to another, and we started it up and invented rules and created judges like Gladys Lee here, who's our Bar Association chairwoman, and got them all involved. In 10 years later, and we started looking over the materials for the last 10 years, and you forget.
Going to be dealing with U.S. government people for advocacy work.
More and more funding.
Yeah, exactly. Otherwise, we have to survive.
Radio, the family, way of government. Councils having a family, it's so good. The internet, we told them it's like Chinese. They're Chinese. I asked the same question, and he said, I crossed yes. He said, no, don't make this complicated. That is an extraordinary. My mother died 17 years ago. I have to put her name there. Ask you.
Hello everybody. Let the next group of people come in and have their event. So once again, I'd just like to thank you all so much for coming tonight. It's been terrific, a real celebration of this lovely event, and so nice that you've all been a part of it and come along and shared this with us. So thank you so much, and see you all soon.
Emily and others are shepherded down. Trying to meet me, and I just, I remember you. You had all sorts of trouble.